I remember doing an interview with Chris Conley asking what was the most difficult thing and just never getting a chance to say goodbye. We weren't supposed to overcome that. Biracial family, parents weren't married, you lose a parent. Overcoming that was what made my brother and sister and I.
We were talking and looking at your story. It's so cool. You drafted by the Atlanta Braves in '94, I believe.
1994.
In '94. You're from Atlanta.
From Atlanta.
And then you went Braves, and then Tigers as a player. Braves, Tigers, Rays, Nationals, and then you got into coaching. Was Red Sox first?
I kept going Dodgers, Marlins, Cleveland, and Tampa.
Right.
So I tried to touch them all. I think I finished playing for 8 different organizations.
So you went that organization, and then when you got into coaching, Red Sox was first. And was it 2010?
This is when it becomes a blur.
Okay.
That's
so true.
I played for the 16,
so
and then I went right into coaching.
Okay,
so I coached for the Red Sox
coaching.
at the lowest level. I was a hitting coach in Lowell, Mass.
That's
so I
right.
got which was great because I was based out of Fort Myers and I live in Miami.
That's right.
On
That's
weekends
right.
until I got up to Lowell for the summer, and I actually started my school too.
That's
so
right.
it gave me more of a 9 to 5. And I could do school every day. I tried to finish my schoolwork before the weekend so I could spend Saturday night, Sunday night at home. And that 4 a.m. came quick, the drive Alligator Alley back to Fort Myers.
So Red Sox, tiny little stint with Atlanta Braves in player development as a field coordinator, then Dodgers first base coach, now currently bench coach with the Tigers. And we'll get into when you and I met, but you and Hoz started crossing paths when you were the first base coach with the Dodgers. And I have something to say. He actually has some beef with you right now. He wants to bring something up about something.
I gotta hear this.
He's got something. He got something.
We started out so good, George, and I was telling these guys yesterday, it was like the first year in San Diego, it's the end of 18, and we had a young team, and we're going in there, and you guys were pretty good. You guys had some Hall of Famers, you guys were rolling, and I was like, man, me and George got so tight. We were talking at first a lot, and I'm like, I think he started to forget I was competing against it because he's like, man, we really need to sweep you guys this week, man. I think it'll be big. We'll gain 2 spots on San Francisco. And I'm like, George, I don't want to hear that right now. We're down 7 right now. But no, man, that was some fun times we had out there in LA. And that team was, stacked. You guys, how many divisions in a row, all that type of stuff. But that organization, too, you had to have learned so much over there. Friedman's a guy that everybody talks to. Like, is there something different over there? Is it in the water out there in LA?
Well,
what is it?
Starters, I am completely blessed the coaching career and the playing career that I had. The Red Sox were phenomenal to be with them for that long and be around so many good people. And just even backing that, Mike Hazen interviewed me for my first job when we went to Boston.
He's with Arizona now,
He's with
right?
Arizona, the president of Arizona. And he goes, George, you have all the traits of being a great coach. You played for a long time. You played for big market. You played for small market. You struggled some. You were a good player at times, like prospect, every different level. He goes, do I expect you to be a good coach right now? No. He goes, you've never flipped the ball. I was going to be a hitting coach that year. I said, you never thrown BP. You never hit a fungo. And it almost took all the pressure off of me. He goes, but we're going to surround you with good coaches and help develop you just like a player. So I remember Chino Carajilla, young coach. You were around Chino.
Atlanta.
Chino probably
mentored.
He probably mentored me as much as any coach I had. And he goes, George, if you ever get into coaching, start at the bottom. And I didn't quite understand that. And you have that area to fail at the bottom. And you're in these situations, tough situation with a player. How do you work through it? So I've kind of worked my way up.
And you said earlier, and this is some of the advice I'm getting now as being a newly retired player, guys say stay involved. So you got right back into it. You went playing straight to coaching. You didn't feel like you needed a break or anything, or do you think getting right into it as a coach helped you out a lot?
Well, if I had your career, I don't know if I would have jumped right in to stay involved. But I played for 16 years, parts of 6 years in the major leagues. It sounds a lot better than the full 2.5 years that I played in the big leagues. But like I said, as you get older, a lot of people I missed out on this, I missed out on that. You look back, how hard it is to do what you've done and to do what I've done. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to do it. So stay involved. what do we define as the successful life? It's when it comes down to it, it's similar like Jackie Robinson, right? Like the positive impact that we have on others. And I realized that I was enjoying helping others more than my actual playing career.
Who are some of those people that have had a positive impact on you in your career or in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned Chino Kadahia. I don't ever tell like a coaching story without bringing Chino's name up.
Best BP thrower ever,
Oh, yeah?
Chino.
And Leon Roberts, like two guys with Atlanta and what they did. Dave Roberts in LA, even now AJ Hinch being around him. But I mean, you're in tears in some of these games in A-ball, and here I am, this big football guy that hasn't figured out how to play baseball, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and Chino's flipping to me, and Leon's flipping to me, and out there for BP for a 7 o'clock game. Macon, Georgia. It's every bit of 99 degrees, and you're out there having fun. And like those people that are there to bring you down when you get too high, but also lift you when you're just getting beat up.
Yeah, and they're not getting overtime for that. They're doing it because they care about you.
Doing it
and
because
that's when you sense that. That's real, man. That's a good feeling to have as a player, anything.
That is so true. You mentioned football guy. Like some people might be thinking, wait, what do you mean big football guy? Like so what a lot of people might not know is you were actually ready to go to Georgia to play football. And then you ended up going to play baseball, obviously, and drafted by the Braves. Talk about like growing up sports. Like, did you know you were going to play baseball? Was football your first love? Talk about that. Like,
well,
that journey.
I mean, if we back the story up even more, like I always loved sports. I came up around an athletic family. My mom was an athlete, and I loved being involved. So I lost my mom at the age of 10, so super young, and it was my outlet. And I think you don't really learn that as a young child. I'm 48 years old now, and you start looking back on your career and like. Our life is just molded from like one experience to the next experience, and that was my outlet. That was one place I could go around other guys that I could trust. I could compete. I could take my frustrations out. Hit football, you could go hit somebody.
Yeah.
And so I played everything: basketball, baseball, soccer, football. I think my mom, when I was like 5, she had me in like a ballet class. We joke around. She was this artist and just wanted our kids to get involved in everything.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started. And I was able to be around some. I mean, originally I played inner city rec ball, and just kind of kept going up from there.
And it seems like even still, like we were talking right before we started shooting the podcast, this episode, you were talking, you're doing saunas, you're doing hot tubs, you're doing cold tubs, you're doing mobility, you're just your health and taking care of your body and taking care of your mind. You're doing master classes. Why does all of that matter so much to you and health? And not just you, your wife Judy and your kids. Like, what role does health and wellness play for you?
Health and I was just talking to Hoz, like when you feel good, you're in a good mood. Like your body feels good, so like it's so important. Like if you have a Hall of Fame career, like I was just around a Hall of Famer this past year who was unbelievable with Miguel Cabrera. Like he's gonna finish his career right at 40 years old. Like he still has so much life to live. So no matter how good, and this is one of the best players to ever play the game, it's only this much of his life. So taking care of your body, putting yourself in positions to be able to help other people, and it's important. And it's pretty cool that some of my boys have embraced it and jumping in a cold plunge. And
yeah, we talk about it. It's just got to be a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, like a lot of guys now, they have a mental skills coach or something outside of the organization that they need to talk to. And Su'a and I said yesterday, and it's so true, like you can't just have 2 good days and a bad day and say, all right, I'm gonna call my guy and say, why did I have this bad day? Like you gotta live your life like this. It's gotta be a lifestyle, you know what I mean? There's gonna be days you don't feel like getting up early, but if you fight through it, get up, you're gonna feel that much better throughout the day instead of in that same just kind of lethargic, lazy mode, you know what I mean? And you just don't seem as productive.
yeah,
That's so true. That's so true. As I'm hearing you talk, one thing that was so funny when. I don't know how many, I almost timed it. Right when you walked into the studio, I I think it took about 45 seconds before you were like modeling like some drills and some footwork. I'm like, George just got here. We're already talking about like, that's like your passion for coaching. You just walk in here and we're already talking about drills and footwork and so forth.
Yeah,
and it was
the over-under was about 47 seconds. I thought it was going to be about
he's getting
30,
into the
but we got right
into it. So it was really cool to see a coach who's passionate about footwork and teaching having this defensive conversation with a multiple-time Gold Glove winner. And so it was really cool to watch this dynamic. Something that a lot of people don't know about sports is there's a lot of tiny little intricacies that if you're an average fan, you don't know. So for example, the personalities of the bullpen. That's a very unique group. That the bullpen is a very special place that they have some wild conversations there. But another one that a lot of people don't know about is the corner positions on the infield and the opposing coaches, the third base coach and the first base coach. The conversations that happen when you're holding a runner on at first base and you three are together and you're hearing things like, and even you're talking to umpires. What are some things like, as a first baseman, as a first base coach, when you were doing that, are there any funny stories of a first baseman you've ever connected with, or are there any over the first base coach or an umpire? Are there any things that jump out to you? Any stories that you'll never forget that took place at the base with nobody else that had any idea that was going on?
I mean, there's so many conversations that go on over there, and like, there's been first base coaches that are now managers that I've talked to. Torey Lovello, when he was in Toronto. And he would just come to first with the most random stuff. So he would be like, all right, Hoz, I'm a genie. You get 3 wishes. What are your 3 wishes? Mine are, I want to eat whatever I want and not be out of shape, this. And I'm like, man, give me an inning or so to think about that. But other than that, man, it really is like, you're right there. You get to ask guys certain questions. A lot of like the older guys, I would start picking their brain on, from when I was like younger, kind of like mechanics and stuff. And then as I got older, I'm like, man, like, what's your routine like now? What do you do? Votto was a guy for me I loved talking to. But yeah, there's definitely that special bond of a first. I think it's even more so at first base because we get to hold the runner on and we all are right there. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Because even now, like the draft last year, I see the New York Yankees pick your son and I'm like, that's my boy. And they're like, where'd you play with him or where did he coach you? I'm like, no, well, he was the first base coach with the Dodgers, so we talked for about 3 years there, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it is. That is a big time. That's big time true. That's awesome.
A lot of the stories do come down to technique, and I'm watching a guy hit and swing, and I'm always trying to learn. But we mentioned earlier with Bobby Dickinson and being around him and some of the stuff he teaches, but just watching like Machado go through a backhand play, and you see all their young guys just killing the ball and their hand technique. So I'll ask questions like that. And there are a ton of stories that we can never talk about.
Yeah, right. That is so
what happened
true.
last night and things like that.
And we talked about this. So a strong, like for me, there's so many bonds that are created in minor league coaching as a lot of these coaches have sons. So it's like, this guy is an infield guru, this guy's a strength and conditioning guru. Like, give me some tips that I can send back and call back home with so he can kind of get ready and do his thing and implement that. So to take that a step further, like guys down here in South Florida, like Miami guys, I think the Latin guys are awesome at this. If they see somebody else from their hometown, from their country, they always find a way to go up to each other and catch up and just kind of see how everything's going. And that was one thing that I loved when we were in Detroit playing you. Me and Manny saw you outside of BP, and you were talking to Manny about for 15, 20 minutes on ground balls and technique to give back to your son. And that, to me, now being a new father, is something that's like, man, that's strong, and that is crazy. And that is stuff, like you said, that you really appreciate what we're doing and at the level we're doing it and the people we get to work with.
Yeah, and that's great. And it's not just about infield. It might be hitting. And I remember going over to Kiermaier, talking about his pre-pitch and what he does with his hops. I try, and it's not just about talking with the really good players. Like anyone that I see something on video and in camera, I want to ask them kind of like the how and the why they do it. Like I'm always trying to, is this the best way we could do this in the outfield with our pre-pitch? Should we open up and get side saddle? Should we have our hips square to the hitter? And then what you really learn is there's so many different ways to do it. Like you can try and find the most efficient way, but it may not be efficient for that player.
And you've always, as long as I've known you, you've always been, he's just a sponge to learn. And to your point, what you just said, a name that's probably not well known in the baseball world. In baseball world, he's known, but in the world is a guy named Taylor Walls, an infielder for the Tampa Bay Rays, who has outstanding hands and feet. And George is out there and watching him, who maybe a lot of people don't know, but he just has that eye for people who do things. And that's such a great point. Even so much to where George and I talk quite a bit. We talk leadership and family and life and so forth. But he even wants to learn from other industries. And so he's talking to tennis experts on their footwork, on how do you receive a serve coming at you at 200 plus miles an hour. And he's willing to put in that work. Have you always been like that? Is that something you've always been, a voracious learner, and to the point to where you want to ask people? Have you always been like that, and if not, where did that come from?
That's great. I don't think of myself as a very good outfielder. In fact, I was not a good outfielder when I first got in. I probably made myself into an average outfielder. I didn't play much baseball growing up.
You're still a running back.
Yeah, I was running back. Yeah. So I'm just curious, and I think that curiosity is important as a coach, because you're just searching ways to be better, like that little 1% every day, 2%. But the Taylor Walls kid, so anytime you're reviewing another team, you go look at can this guy throw from deep in the hole? Can he throw up the middle? How does he move? Does he get his head down a lot? And I was watching some video of Taylor Walls, and he got off the ball as good as any young player that I'd ever seen. And just, as an infielder, you see a foul ball. This guy is moving 8 steps on a foul ball. So the anticipation for a ball, and I was blown away. I went up and introduced myself. And then I like to know where a kid's from, because there's so many conversations that come up. And he was from Georgia, I'm from Atlanta.
Especially when you see him repeating that intent, you know what I mean? So you're with him 162, you probably played him 3-4 game series. The fact that a guy is doing that every single pitch, that's what's impressive. You're consistent. It's not just I feel good today, I'm doing it. That's pretty legit. So the first name, when you said willing to do different stuff, our buddy popped in my mind, Raul Ibanez. So Raul, he was with the Royals in 2014, and I think he was 41, 42. And my whole life, I just thought you got to train for baseball. You know what I mean? Nothing else is like baseball. You train for baseball physically, and that's it. You hit, lift weights, do whatever. But this guy at 40 years old is telling me he's doing kickboxing to get certain movement in his hips and doing all this different type of stuff, working out, rise, Pilates, all this. So that really opened my eyes of okay, there's different stuff out there that you can do that could make you a better athlete, baseball player. And that's something I had no idea about. But Raul is, that's one of the best people I've ever been around. And this guy, as far as knowledge and how he is on the game, he's second to none in my opinion.
You couldn't say that any better. And I met Raul when I first moved to Miami. I came from Atlanta. My wife's from Miami. We came down here. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we worked at FIU, a college down here, Florida International. And it was a great group. I slid into this group, but it was Mike Lowell, Preston Wilson, Jose Cruz Jr., Alex Gonzalez, a great group. And we'd start off on the track, then we'd go into the weight room, and then slide over to the baseball field. But a story I mentioned earlier, I can remember picking up balls after BP. You're out there for hours shagging just a handful of guys. And he comes up to me and he's like, George, you can be an all-star. You know that, right? And I was at that point, I'd probably spent a month or two in the big leagues, and I couldn't envision it. And he goes, George, you're faster than all of us. You're stronger. You hit the ball further than us. You get that in your mind, because you can be an all-star. And it was that story, he doesn't remember telling me the story. And then you fast forward a long way, we were coaching together. I was with the Dodgers with him. He was a special assistant to Andrew Friedman. And just the way he's impacted so many players. I think he was voted second most likable guy behind Jim Thome in baseball. But
that's spot on.
It's just he just cares. He really cares for people and wants to help them.
That's awesome.
He helped me so much with my role this year with Chicago, because when he came to Kansas City, he wasn't playing every day. He wasn't getting at bats. And this guy's had a legendary career. I'm fresh off of my senior year, watching him pinch hit for the Yankees, hit big homers in the playoffs. And I see the way he's acting, not getting big time playing time. So when it happened to me, I immediately think of a guy like him. Say, how can I act like this if Raul did this? You know what I mean? Okay. So like even stuff that he doesn't say has an impact on people.
That is so true when you're around people who they don't have to even say much. And in this case, obviously, Raul has said very impactful things to many people that's affected them. But just the way they live their lives makes you want to be better, which also makes me think about parenting. And we're talking about your son, George Jr., your first-round draft pick for the New York Yankees. Your son, Jacob, who's a beast of his own, just doing, I don't want to say following footsteps, but he's paving his own path, and it's amazing what he's doing. What role do you play in shaping in them? Do you feel that you play in helping them in their journeys?
I mean, parenting is interesting because of what my oldest son has done and my younger one's doing. I get questions about it a lot. It's like, I mean, how are they so good at catching this ball and stuff like that? So it always goes back to this specific drill in baseball. And I think it's so much more than that. You have to love your kids, like unconditional love. And that's the way I was raised. When I think about my mom and the things she did, it was unconditional love and there for you all the time. A shoulder to lean on, shoulder to cry on, and then push you to be the best player you can be, or best person you can be. So it wasn't like you don't need your kid to be, you want him to be the best player that he can possibly be. Not any better than that, not any worse than that, and you want to push that guy. But when I think of body movements, like I said, being curious, one of the best things that we can teach our kids is body awareness. So at a young age, gymnastics. My younger one, he can walk on his hands down this from one side of the room to the other. He can jump up and do a flip. They get this foundation of understanding how the body stops. It starts. People thought I was crazy to let my older son play soccer all the way through high school, through his senior year. That even cut into 3 games of the baseball season on his draft year, and it was the best thing that he ever did. And some of the advice I remember asking, should I let him play his senior year? Should we start to specialize? And the question came like, does he want to play? And I said, yeah, he wants to play. It's a really good coach. It's a really good team. Then let him play. He goes, where we get into trouble is starting to prepare for the draft. So all of a sudden you're having to work on these running skills and such. You're preparing him to play at that level at some point, and all it does is add pressure. So ultimately, him playing soccer is going to make him a better baseball player. You may not see it right away, and there's that grace period that parents start to panic. Oh, he's falling behind. He's falling behind. Let them play. Like just cross-training the body and understanding how the body moves.
So let me dig deep on this one, because I told you I'm a new father now. Like towards the end of my career, when I had more of a leadership role, like I didn't mind getting in, like lighting a guy up, because I knew it was the best for him. And honestly, it was like one of those things where if this guy didn't like me, that's fine. I know I'm doing the best thing for this guy, and I know it's the best thing for him. At some point, whether it's a couple years down the road, he's gonna realize that and he'll appreciate it at some point, hopefully. But as a father, like your kid, you wanna have that tough love on him, but at the same time, you don't wanna go weeks with him being pissed off at you. So how's that balance out?
Everyone's different. Just from a coaching standpoint, there are guys you have to light up. That's the way they respond. There's other guys you got to get on his shoulder, hug them. Like I was Mookie Betts' first manager when we were together at Boston, and that was a guy you had to remind him how good he was every now and then, because he's moping and like, Dad, I just can't get a hit. I was like, Mookie, you're really good. You're really, really good. Like, go out there and perform. So yeah, I think the honesty and that bond you build with your kids and the trust where they can trust you, and then there comes a point, like I think I do less coaching with my kids now than I've ever done before, because first of all, it's they want to take leadership and they want to be in control. Like my kid does not want to hear me, hey, you got to get on top of this ball. You got to, stay up the middle on this ball. Like that just adds the frustration and arguments while you're working out. So it's okay to let them fail. Let them fail. They will figure it out. They're really good athletes. They'll figure it out. And in fact, them figuring it out on their own is probably going to do more to help them than me sitting there working them through everything. So I always look at failure as the first step into success. Like If we were to do something one way all the time, eventually the game or someone else is going to pass you by because you haven't experimented other ways to do it. So just trying to make it more challenging. One of George's coaches said, if you're catching 100% of the ground balls I'm hitting you, I'm not doing a good job. Like, there needs to be a threshold of making challenging plays to keep pushing you.
Put them in some uncomfortable
Yeah.
positions and all that.
Yeah.
I like your outlook on failure and what you said about that. What have been some of your most defining failures?
Oh, I've been good at failure. Yeah, I would say I've been pretty good at responding to failure. You know, I mean, I was top 2 or 3 running backs coming out of high school in the country. So it was me, Fred Taylor, and Fred Beasley. Fred Taylor signed to go to Florida, and it's funny to mention these conversations because. Or these topics, because it felt like a different lifetime. I can't even go out and catch a football now. But Fred Taylor signed to go to Florida, I signed to go to Georgia, and Beasley signed to go to Auburn. They both went on to have great NFL careers, and we see Taylor being from down here. It's special, and he's doing great things. So football came natural to me. I was really strong, really fast. I could jump, and baseball was the most difficult thing that I've done as an athlete. My first year in the pro ball, I hit a $140, you know, and everyone's like, what's wrong with this guy? And then I had these people that believed in me, and Leon Roberts, like, I can see you clear as day hitting 1 through 5 in a major league lineup. Just keep pushing. It's going to be okay. You haven't played near as many games as this guy. I could barely throw the ball to second base. In fact, as a coach, I might have a better arm than I did as a player. So yes, I failed. It was difficult, and you get embarrassed, and you want to find ways to kind of keep building and getting better. And it starts to change once you start to have some success, and those little baby steps of one little success adds to the other, and all of a sudden you start to have a little confidence, and you start walking around with that little bit of swag.
What's interesting as a player, it's so easy to see a player's failures because obviously you can read their stat sheet, you can just see, oh yeah, they're struggling. Sometimes as a coach, it's hard you don't see it. It's not as there's not a lot of publicity around it unless you're a manager, decision-making things. But have you experienced any failure as a coach in your professional career, or anything that you would consider a failure or a mistake that have actually, in the long run, it helped you learned from it? But has there ever had any moments like that?
Well, I'll give you 2 examples. For starters, my 5 years with the Dodgers were amazing, and we went to 3 World Series, went to playoffs all year. It took our 3rd World Series to win one. And you talk about something difficult. Like when I'd come home and coach my son or my boys, and kids are crying when you lose, like the 12 and under baseball game. I said, you think this is hard? Try losing Game 7 at home in a World Series. That's
in front
difficult.
Of the whole world.
And just the character of those guys and those coaches in LA, it was really special to be able to bounce back and every year come back with a better team. And we saw each other a lot in San Diego, and we're talking about, like, how does it keep happening? And when you get the right people that have, like, the care factor behind it and want to be good, and the discipline to, okay, we didn't win, how can we be better to win the next year? And then it makes it that much more gratifying when you do win.
That was like our story with Kansas City, man. We went 2014, Game 7, lose, and the very next year just roll through the whole American League, win it all. And, like, not that you get more points or anything added on, but, like, it's solidified to me, like, dude, this group of people I'm with, man, this is a special group. The fact that we just took that loss, took it on the chin, came right back the next year and got over that hump.
Yeah, that's huge.
So the second story is a little different, and I remember just getting my first major league coaching job, and I felt like I never felt so prepared, but so much as a rookie at the same time. I've been coaching a while, and I remember seeing something that was going on in the field, and I went to the manager. I was like, you know what, this kid might go a little rogue. He's not quite believing what we're doing. And the manager calls him in and goes off on him. And not how I drew. Like, I was just trying to have this great line of communication with the staff, and it was one of my most difficult coaching moments because I lost the trust of the player. And if I had to do over, I would have done differently. And ultimately, the line of communication with that player was at the end of the day, I love you and I wanted what was best for you, and I thought it was going to help you. And the player didn't talk to me for like a year. It was really difficult, and I felt bad. It's because I cared so much. And I remember the manager going, "It's like, George, you know what? At some day, he's not going to be around. This player's not going to be around you, and he's going to appreciate how much you cared for him and stuff like that." And fast forward a couple years down, and comes up and gives me a huge hug, and it's so cool to see that he really enjoyed my time, and hopefully I helped him be a better player.
That's awesome. That's a really, and it made me, that story is so good because it made me think about you and all the coaches you've had in your life, all the managers you've had in your life, all the different, from hitting coaches to infield coaches. In your experience, for you, what are the character traits, or what for a bit in the big leagues? What separates the good coaches from the great ones in your opinion?
So, I mean, obviously consistency is a big thing. I want to know that this guy's got my back, he's the same guy every day, and I can trust him and all that. So baseball, being a coach in baseball is so much different than soccer, football, basketball. Those sports, you're the offensive, defensive coordinator, you're drawing up plays, and it's one ball trying to get in a hoop, score a goal, that type of thing. Baseball is an individual battle. When you're in the batter's box, it's you versus the pitcher. So you being a bench coach, you got to worry about the whole entire roster. And it's more of a mental deal than anything, because like you got 9 different position players, each of them have different personalities, and you got to find a way to get this guy going each and every single day for his individual battle. You know what I mean? So to me, it's a whole different style. And when you get to that big league level, at that point in time, your mechanics are your mechanics. You can make small tweaks and stuff like that, but you're trying to go over every little advantage you can find. I'm trying to tell you, or they're trying to tell us, every little advantage, every little edge we can find on the other team. And you being in LA, I know usually the first base coaches, they do a lot of the base running stuff. So, you know, if I'm a base runner, I'd get with Georgie before every series, and it's like, hey, this pitcher and this pitcher, you know, when he comes set, he's doing something different when he picks off or when he goes home. And that's that little edge that you can get. So when I see a coach going to bat, going to war, doing that stuff and doing the extra work, I'm like, all right, this guy's in my corner and he cares. And that, to me, is what creates that relationship, is that trust.
Well, you said it, the care. I call it the gas, like the GAS, gas to give a shit. And there's no other way to put it but the care factor, and how much a guy cares. You can take somebody with great technique and does all the technique right and doesn't care, doesn't have the gas, and he's not gonna get to where he needs to go. And you can take somebody with just give a shit off the charts, and he might outperform this player. Ultimately, we want great technique and the care factor, and then we have something special. And I think, like, the players I think of as Chase Utley, probably the most respected player that I've ever coached and been a chance to play with, and that guy, his give a shit was off the charts. And then you look at the numbers and you're like, this guy has the smallest primary lead at first base, but has the fastest time to second. And it's just because he never took a pitch off, the anticipation. So then you combine like great technique and gas.
What do you say about a guy who I don't know if you call it, I don't know how you would say it, who they do give a shit, they do care a lot, but it comes off as, look at this guy, eyewash. What is he trying to do? He's going, he has a bad game, and he goes into the cages after the game because he cares, and everyone else is like, oh, look at this guy, what's he doing? Or a coach who's at the computer and he really cares a lot, but it comes off as, what are you doing? We're in the middle of August, like we've played this team X amount of times. How do you navigate that? You do care, but it comes off like, look at you, you're just trying to do it to be seen by everybody else. How did you guys navigate that?
For me, it's like, all right, you got to know when you're on a team, when you're sharing a clubhouse together, like there's no other option. Everyone in that locker room, we don't control whether or not you get traded, released, and all, whatever that is. So it's like, all right, we're stuck together. We got to make this work. We can be completely different off the field, but at the end of the day, you got to know that I'm going to bat for you, and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do to get you ready to go. And some guys are going to show that differently. And I think as long as you know that you don't have to prove to this guy, like, it doesn't have to come in a short-term aspect as far as trying to win this guy over. I think if this guy knows that you have his back for the long run, and you know what, if you handle it a little different than this guy, that's okay. But as long as that player knows you're going to go to bat for him, and other people are going to have questions, but you're dealing with him most of the time, and you know that he's got me, I think you can live with that at the end of the day.
Yeah, we need to allow players to be themselves, be the best version of themselves, with the common goal of doing something special and winning a championship. And that was a little different. I came up with the Atlanta Braves, and it were by the book. You couldn't have your batting gloves hanging out of your back pocket. You couldn't wear your Oakleys on top of your hat. And so I think discipline is great, and teaching young players to do it the right way. And then you get to the major leagues, and there's so many fires to put out, so many things go on every day, that ultimately you want this guy to give everything he has every day with this common goal of winning. And everyone does it different. Like, you have a different personality. Just like when you cut the radio on, you think like, I don't understand why this person doesn't like this song. I like it, but no, everyone's different. You want them to be that person. Mike Napoli, he had his shirt unbuttoned down to his belly button. That guy played the game the right way. And you think about it. Justin Turner, like the hair out, this big beard, plays the game the right way. So like, there's so many different stories, and would do anything for their teammates that are like that. If you play with that common goal of winning and allowing players, and when you allow them to be themselves, that's when you get the best version of them. So I've seen it both. Like, you want the discipline, but you want guys to be out there and have the freedom of being relaxed, and that way you will see the best version of them.
And we talk about it all the time, how it starts from the top. So like, a guy like Andrew Friedman, when he's looking at a player, I feel like that's part of the evaluation. You know, like the gas, like, this dude needs to give, this dude needs to work. And if not, like, ultimately that's not gonna fit our system, that's not gonna fit what we do. So to me, some of these organizations, like, you know, everyone has those guys that need a little more or whatnot, but the high organizations, the high-end guys, the high-end successful GMs, presidents, and all that, to me, that's part of the whole evaluation, you know?
And hearing you talk, and I don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the future is going to hold, but let's just do a little thought experiment. Let's say somewhere down the line, you're a manager of a big league team. You get an opportunity, you're now managing a club. And we were talking about, like, it starts from the top. We were talking about the different managers he's played for and the role that the manager plays. That's a completely different conversation. Now it's way different. What would be your approach to be if you were a brand new manager? I know there are a lot of things that it depends, and maybe you want to share some of those. How would you approach that? Of being a new manager, you approach a clubhouse full of guys who would experience as Hosmer, so you have some young guys. What would be your approach to be successful that first year?
Yeah. So it's, you know, you are putting me on the spot, but I would just like I mentioned, like I want you guys to be the best version of yourself with this common goal to win. And good things are going to go happen. So I want you to prepare the right way. I want to give a shit off the charts. When you're putting together a coaching staff, like, the first thing you want is the human. Like, you want a good person that you can trust and believe in. If you have the right person, they will learn the information. Like, even if they're less experienced. Coaching, you get into coaching and you're around some super talented players that don't have all the buy-in. Like, the coaches will take the player that has give a shit, like, any day, because he may not be the most talented, but this kid wants to care. You will go out there and spend as much time. It's not like I just need to work with these prospects. You will spend as much time with that kid as you possibly can, because you want to help him. So, like I said, the care factor is one of the most important things you can ask, like, of your staff and your players. Going out there and just wanting to be a part of something special.
That's huge. And what would be, you said it has to be a good human. What's your criteria for a good human?
Accountable, someone you can trust, work ethic, energy level. I think energy is huge. You know who told me this? Rusty Kuntz. And you talk about an unbelievable coach. So this is one of those baseball lifers that, like, when that story about me feeling like so prepared for a job but a rookie at the same time, Rusty's like, when you I took my first major league coaching job with the Dodgers, we go have dinner in Arizona like the third day I got out to spring training, and he shows up at Outback with a binder this thick, this thick. He had printed out all of his papers. And on the cover of it, he made copies of like 8 of my baseball cards and everything, this whole binder with all of his notes. And we sat there, and I felt like we were there for 30 minutes, and we'd been there for 3 hours just talking about different like tendencies and how to, and when you talk about people that helped me and push my career, he's one of those guys. And that's why when people call me, I do the same. I sit down with them and talk about ways I can help you, because I had so many people that got me to where I am today.
That's awesome. And I'm very curious about your perspective, having had so many managers. Let's say you have a first-year manager. Now you're what advice would you have for a first-year manager?
Just same stuff we've been talking about before. You know, you got to trust your players, you got to trust your staff, because your staff is dealing with all these guys. But in my opinion, where a lot of first-year managers, where they struggle with a little bit, is they want that instant credibility. They want instantly to these guys to kind of buy in. And the reality of it is, it doesn't work like that. You know, you got guys like some of these managers that have that 15 year past resume, and they've done it at the highest level for a long time. Like, they have that, you know what I mean? As a young manager, I think guys want to see, man, this guy's been the same every day. His message has been consistent. He's not reactionary. We messed up a cut and relay the other day, and now we're doing it tomorrow. Like, he's consistent with his message. He's consistent on what he expects out of us. And honestly, that's all you can ask for, you know? But for me, it's like you said, the humans, you got to hire the right people around you, because the manager, he's controlling a lot. He's doing everything. But when it all breaks down, pitchers are with the pitching guys, infielders are with the infielders. You spend the most time with your position coach.
Are there any in your career, from minor leagues all the way to the big leagues? I'm sure you could say something good about most, if not all, the managers you've been with, but is there one in particular that sticks out to you, like that was a notable either experience or a notable a moment you had with a particular manager that you really appreciated?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Ned Yost more and more each year that I've gotten to not play for him. So each year it's passed, because he trusted his staff fully. So I think at the same time, the coaches respected him, because they're going out doing their job the way they want to do it. No one's looking over their shoulder. It's you teach this guy infield, you teach him what you need to know. So he really trusted his staff, and he was a real good motivator. Ned, the one thing about him was a big thing in baseball, you don't want to have team meetings. Like, it's not good if you're after the game and you got to meet with the team. That means something bad's going on. You're not playing well or whatnot. Ned would find the perfect time to just say little messages to us after a game in the clubhouse. And I remember there was one time, it was like we were down like 10-3 in like the 6th inning or whatnot. We end up coming back. We get to 10-8, bases loaded, 2 outs, lose the game. You know, we had been on a bad skid at that point. Ned comes in there, and we think he's not going to say something, like he's going to light us up. And he's like, I couldn't be more proud of you guys right now. That fight you guys just showed, if you guys continue to have that fight, we're going to be just fine at the end of the year, and we're going to trust we're going to be where we need to be. So for me, that was everything. I mean, I felt like he had, we'll run through a brick wall for that guy at that point. And that's just ways you show it. And there's so many different ways. There's through the media and how you deal with the front office, and then you have a different conversation with them. So if you can prove to these guys and they sense that you have that and you have their back, then I think that's when that buy-in comes eventually.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's Ned came up around Bobby Cox, and Bobby Cox is one of the most respected managers. And you talk about having someone's back. Like, Bobby Cox was ejected more times than any coach ever. I don't even think it's close. And I think towards the end, Bobby would be sticking up for Maddox and couldn't even see if the pitch was a ball or strikes. Maddox wanted it and go out there and get tossed and didn't even know it was, but he was great. And just humble person, and allowed you to feel just like a normal guy having a conversation. He's like, George, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get you some pitches at bat. There's a lefty in there in spring training. Hey, go get him, kid. You got it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's cool hearing all of these stories and the success that you've had with your family and the success you've had in your own career and as a coach. I want to read something. I always love to hear, where did this all begin? Like, what makes people who they are? how are they raised and who were they raised by? Because I believe that a lot of us, we're a function of just how we were raised, good or bad, the environment and especially in the home. I want to read this. You said this. These are your own quote. You said this: "The coolest thing about me is my mom's story." And you go on. You said, "I spent my time starting to research and learn more about my mom's story and some of the things she stood up for. And I realized how big a hero that she was. And her story is so unique because she was white, and so many people can relate to that when they think, what can I do to help in this manner?" Now, people listening, they might have no clue what I'm talking about and no clue about your mom's story. And I just thought that was just so powerful. The coolest thing about you is your mom's story. For those who don't know, tell us about your mom.
Oof, this one makes me take a sip of water, but because it's tough when you talk about it. But well, I always thought I had the perfect upbringing. Biracial family, white mom, black father. My mother was from a privileged family from the Northeast. My grandfather was the dean of Harvard for 40 plus years of the business school. So highly educated family. Their family came over on the Mayflower at some point. So I have this like historical family that came over. My dad, dark-skinned black man from South Georgia, no money. I would think it's safe to say my dad struggled like to read and write. Like he came up in a very difficult time in the South. So here's my mom had a house on Cape Cod and this house in Boston, but she went to Smith. And she ran into a teacher that impacted her life, and that's what took her to want to get involved in the civil rights movement. So in the Northeast, she got in a car, went south, and that took her to Atlanta. But very good friends. I mean, she was in the thick of it. Very good friends with John Lewis, James Foreman, Ambassador Andrew Young. When she passed away, he is the one that gave the prayers at our house. So. She went to prison probably 8 to 10, 12 times, doing sit-ins, standing up for voters' rights, equal rights of minorities. But she did it. She was around Black Panthers and made a lot of sacrifices for the things that she believed in. So it was a very difficult time when she passed. Like I remember it was a car accident, so it was unexpected, and I remember doing an interview with Chris Conley, asking what was the most difficult thing, and just never getting a chance to say goodbye. I mean, that was tough, and because you don't envision that as just a kid, and you talk about experiences. That was overcoming that was. What made my brother and sister and I. And I think I've gone on to have this unbelievable career. My brother's a rock star. He's a lawyer out in California. My sister got a master's from Harvard. And I actually talked to my brother on the way here, and I was nervous because I was interviewing for my first managing job. And I was like, God, I'm nervous. I said, George, you nervous? And he says, George, we can do anything we want to do. And it was super cool. Because we weren't supposed to overcome that. Biracial family, parents weren't married, you lose a parent, and so it was pretty cool. So it was a cool story. Wow.
Thanks for sharing that. And as you think about your mom, I'd imagine you think about her every day. I'd imagine that she's some aspect of how you are and the person you are. And then you got to a point where you brought a book to show her stories. At what point in your life, because at 10 years old, I'm thinking about 10 years old, at what point in your life did you want to investigate and research more and learn more about her and more what she did? At what point did you really want to dig into that?
2020 hit. And we all know what we went through with all the social issues, and being part of LA was cool, and they do so many things off the field. And I remember the media guy asked me, hey, George, Well, first of all, he knew the story about my mom from Mother's Day, and they'd shared the story a little bit. And he asked for a copy of my mom's FBI file. So it's over 300 pages, and if you read this thing, you're blown away when you read it. And it wasn't anything uncommon. Anyone that was involved in the civil rights movement, that was attached to all these huge names, and being right in the middle of it, they had people tracking you. Your phones were tapped. People following you. And so, I mean, there's photos. You go through the FBI file, there's the surveillance photos of her. So that story broke, and it went kind of viral. And then the stories are coming out in 2020. So the media guy asked me, hey, George, they want to do a story with you. I was like, sure, no problem. And I thought it was going to be about Bellinger and Mookie. We got 2 MVPs in the outfield. And he goes, no, this story is about your mom. And it was Chris Conley, a SportsCenter feature story. And
Wow.
But he goes, people need to hear this story. Your mom was white. People can relate to that and see how she made a difference in so many lives. So there came the curiosity. At 9, 10, 11 years old, you remember a lot. I remember a lot about her. There's so many stories I don't know. And I think if you ask anyone that knew my mom, got to know her personally, they're like, rock star, badass. So all her classmates started reaching out to me and to my brother and to my sister. They always wanted to check on us, but they never had a chance to meet us. And this gave them the opportunity to open up the doors. And then the Dodgers donated money to a fund in her honor. And before you knew it, we'd raised up to $42,000. So
Wow.
It was pretty cool. And that goes back to how you get a chance to impact somebody. And here you are, you think you have this little voice and it's never going to happen. And now you've impacted a lot of people.
Yeah. Has there been any players or any coaches, anyone in particular, them hearing your mom's story actually strengthen your bond with people who you're like, whoa, I never thought that person would care so much about my mom's story?
Oh yeah, you know what it did? It made me human. I went from being the coach, Travis Smith, the strength coach with the Dodgers, rock star, another. But the players had a team chat, and they asked Travis and I to go on a Zoom call. That was the day of the Zoom. The Zooms are going all the time, but they asked us to speak. And I remember Ross Stripling coming up and saying, George, I apologize. I've been with you for 4 years. This is our 5th year together, and I didn't know this story. And I didn't expect him to know it, and I haven't shared it with a lot of people. But and Kershaw spoke about it, so it made me feel wanted. It made me human. We think we have these perfect little lives when we all have this twist to it. And just like you said, it's these experiences that build us and allow us to bounce back from things. And it doesn't always have to be good. You could someone could have treated you one way, and you take a bad response to it. So. But our life is full of these decisions, and it's just which path are we going to take, and ultimately all these decisions just lead to a full life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's got to make you feel so good that deep down you're making your mom proud by having the ability to impact a young Mookie Betts at 18, 19 years old, and you fast forward now. Mookie Betts is a superstar in LA and has that ability to make the world a better place. And all the work he does in the community out there, what he does for all the kids out there. So that's got to make you feel good at some point, right? This guy was complaining to me that he's a bad baseball player, but now this dude's a grown man and he understands the impact he has on kids in LA, everybody in LA, throughout the whole world. And to see him and the character he's built, that's got to make you proud.
Oh.
And that's the rewarding part of being a coach, along with the World Series ring, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. So that first year when the Red Sox won, I was there. The players I had coached with hadn't broken into the big leagues yet. That second one, when I was, I'm not sure what year
18.
it was. 18.
Yeah.
But we had Xander Bogaerts, we had Mookie Betts, we had these players. It was so cool to see impact these players as they grow up and know you were a difference maker with them.
Yeah. Yeah. My last question for you two, I'd love both of you to answer this. So let's say someone's watching this and they had a tough background, or with family, or they're struggling in low A ball, or they're going through something very, very difficult. What advice do you guys have for that person who is, and maybe they're using their difficulty growing up as almost like a crutch, almost like, oh, I can't be great because it's not in my pedigree. I can't be great because I don't have the resources. The odds are too far against me. What would you guys have to say to that person?
I'm not some like philosopher at all, but I there's one that I don't even know who told me this or where I read it, but it's that quote of saying, I once met a man who complained because he had no shoes, and then I met a man with no feet. So here we are, like, it can always be worse. Like is even my story, it's an unbelievable story of overcoming some difficult times, but there are people a lot worse than me. So I'm very thankful and blessed to be where I'm at. And the other thing is, when my kids struggle, like they come home, they're in tears and stuff like that, I like, all right, tell me something you did good in the game, tell me something you can do better, all right? And like, what are we gonna do about it? What are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna mope? All right, we're gonna turn the page, hey, let's go. You wanna go work on that breaking ball down and away that you scuffle with that next day? So what are we gonna do about it? That's what I ask them.
Love that question.
Perspective for me is everything, and like you said, it could be worse. Like, this is a game we're playing, we get to have this opportunity. I mean, there's people that are fighting for their lives daily, whether it's health, whether it's the situation they're in. So I'm with you, I'm not a crazy talker, and I can't make it all sound good, but that's the simple answer for me. And that's something that when there was those bad days where you didn't, mentally you were a little out of sync, I would always try and reflect and kind of just tell myself that.
Yeah, I think that's so huge. And hearing what you guys are saying, I love, because we were talking about that question, what are you gonna do about it? Because I think it's so easy to look at how bad your situation is, and then you kind of put yourself out of the driver's seat and you're just this pawn in this game of life, as opposed to what I love about what are you gonna do about it? Now that helps you refocus on what you can control. I love that question. And then perspective, whether you gotta zoom out or you gotta zoom in, or you gotta focus, hey, what would my mom do here? Or what would my dad say to me? I think those are the things are so powerful. Yeah, so I think that's that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
That's great. I talk to my mom all the time. Just having conversations like, what would I do here? Or what do you think about this?
Who's a player that is, they might not be seen as a leader, but their role in the clubhouse is so underrated because they just have the vibe. They're either hilarious or they say something at the right time, or just they're really consistent. Has there been a player in your guys' career where like, no one realizes how huge this guy is because he's so funny, or just the way he is? Have you guys come across anybody like that?
Kike talks about Utley a lot with you guys, and he was obviously a superstar.
That's where I was gonna go. I'll tell this story.
He was at the end of his career with LA, so yeah, I know he's a good one for George.
Yeah, so I think this is great for the audience to hear, and you can dice it and slice it however you want, but and find out if it's the proper one to tell. But Utley has changed so many careers, the way he goes about it, and Kike would be one of those guys. Like the diet, he does everything the right way. He'll do anything to win a game, whether it's Utley, heads up, I think they have a back pick on, because I've researched it. I see the little sign for it. He goes, good, I want him to back pick. What are you talking about? As I promise you, if he back pits here, this ball's going off my body down the right field line, and I'm going to third base. So that's the way he thinks. This is a funny one, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone. But so we're in Milwaukee, and this is before we had all the unwritten rules, before people were running and at certain phases of the game. But I believe the Dodgers have maybe a 5-run lead in the 7th inning, or something close to that, and Yasiel, I don't know if I was going to use his name. So Puig gets on second base, and Doc's already, hey, we're not going to run here, we're not going. And he's on second base with 2 outs, and he starts shuffling. I was like, he's going to go. No, he's going to go. Because I look at it, he's going to go. And everyone knows how much energy Puig plays with, and his passion behind the game would go against the grain sometimes, but there he goes. And he probably would have been out by 5 feet if it was a foul ball, and he had a terrible jump but took off for third. And I see Doc apologizing over to counsel, like it wasn't supposed to happen. And then so the game keeps going. We go out to the field, and you see Utley with his arm around Yasiel going out to the position. And the only reason we knew this story because the umpire called over and said, "You got to hear what happened in the batter's box the next inning." So, if you know Chase, he would never do anything to show up the umpire. So he gets in the box, has his head down. I did recognize it was taking a long time for him to get in the box, and he goes, "This is what I want you to do." He goes, "I want you to call time and go out there and tell the pitcher to F and drill me. And if he doesn't do it, he's the P word." So if he doesn't do it, he's a pussy. and the catcher goes like, "Well, Chase, what am I going to hit you?" He goes, "Well, I'm trying to teach Yasiel a lesson, and the only way he'll listen to me if he feels bad for it if I get hit." Yeah,
that's the next
so
level.
Next level. Like, so they're like stories like this, and he doesn't do it, and he puts his head down again and goes, "You're."
What a legend. What an absolute legend.
There's so many like legendary stories of what it took for him to win, and I know he had a bad rap for the slide and there really was no malice behind it. He's competing. He needs to break up the double play, goes in hard. The infielder's in a poor position.
He's living in London right now. He's been out there for
working
a couple years.
with MLB.
Trying to grow the game out
I know
there.
but I really looked up to him and the way he played the game and the career that he had. Like Chase would never, like I almost feel bad leaking the story, but he would never tell you that story.
Yeah.
Like, and the only reason we knew was because the umpire called over.
The umpire
Like,
said it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The stories were awesome. They were unmatched. I still got a little ill will towards you about that comment we talked about in LA, but other than that, it was awesome, man, and it was super beneficial for us, and we appreciate you coming on, brother.
Well, thank you for having me. I did see the list of some of the guests you're gonna have, so I wanted to get this interview before you guys canceled me.